The partnership between the United States and Europe has long been a cornerstone of global stability and prosperity, built on decades of shared values, economic cooperation, and military alliances. But today, this relationship is facing its greatest test in decades, as new challenges and shifting priorities emerge on both sides of the Atlantic. Recent U.S. policies, marked by unpredictability and deep political divisions, have left European leaders questioning whether they can still rely on American support as they once did. The post-war alliance, forged in the aftermath of conflict, is now being re-examined, not to end a friendship, but to prepare for a future where that friendship may look very different and where mutual interests may not always align. The rise of the America First approach, along with heated debates over Ukraine aid, have exposed Europe's heavy reliance on unpredictable U.S. decisions, making many in Europe uneasy about their own security and future. This uncertainty has sparked urgent calls for strategic autonomy, Europe's ability to act in its own interests, both economically and militarily, without depending on Washington's shifting priorities. Meanwhile, the U.S. is increasingly focused on countering China's rise, and future American administrations may invest even less in European security, leaving Europe to shoulder more responsibility. For Europe, the question is no longer if it should become more independent, but how quickly it can do so, and what steps are needed to achieve that independence without fracturing old alliances. Untangling decades of deep economic and military ties is a daunting challenge, requiring careful negotiation and a willingness to rethink long-standing assumptions. The U.S. has provided security through NATO and fueled European prosperity, but shifting away from this model requires a fundamental rethink of Europe's defense, trade, and diplomatic strategies. The journey toward independence is not just a matter of policy, it's a profound shift in Europe's identity, forcing leaders and citizens alike to reconsider what it means to be European in a changing world. As the world changes rapidly, Europe must decide how to adapt, innovate, and assert itself on the global stage, balancing old partnerships with new realities. The stakes for the continent's future have never been higher, and the choices made today will shape Europe's destiny for generations to come. Across Europe, calls for greater independence and unity are growing louder than ever before, but the European Union's 27 member states remain deeply divided on how to actually achieve this vision. France, for example, champions the idea of European sovereignty and wants the continent to stand on its own, while Eastern European countries like Poland and the Baltic states still see the United States as their main security guarantor, especially in the face of ongoing threats from Russia. This diversity of perspectives and priorities is both a source of strength, bringing together many voices and experiences, and a stumbling block that makes consensus difficult. Proposals for a unified European army or pooling military resources have repeatedly stalled, as many nations fear losing control over their own forces and worry about the high financial costs involved. The ongoing tension between the desire for collective strength and the need to protect national sovereignty keeps true autonomy more a topic of discussion than a reality. To make real progress, Europe must focus on practical, concrete steps, investing in technology, infrastructure, and innovation, rather than endless political debates. The path to genuine independence centers on three essential pillars: building economic resilience, strengthening security capabilities, and enacting meaningful political reforms. By building a stronger, more competitive economy, Europe can better fund its own defense and reduce reliance on outside powers. And with a more unified defense, the continent will have a louder, more influential voice on the global stage. Streamlining decision-making and cutting through bureaucracy will help the EU respond faster and more effectively to both threats and opportunities as they arise. The journey toward a more independent and united Europe is complex and challenging, but more and more people now see it as essential for the continent's future security and prosperity. The time for conversation is ending. Europe must now turn words into action and shape its own destiny. The EU and US share one of the world's largest and most influential economic relationships, with trillions of dollars in trade and investment flowing between them every year. This partnership has shaped global markets and set the tone for international finance. Yet, despite this close connection, Europe remains more vulnerable to sudden US policy shifts and economic decisions than many realize. When the US raises interest rates or imposes sanctions, European markets can experience sharp disruptions. Companies are sometimes forced to abandon lucrative projects, and entire industries can feel the ripple effects. The goal isn't to sever these vital transatlantic ties, but to create a more balanced and resilient European economy, one that can weather storms and stand on its own feet. To achieve this, Europe must strengthen its internal market, diversify its trade partners, and reduce overdependence on any single country or currency. Developing a robust financial infrastructure is key. This means reducing reliance on the US dollar and Wall Street, while boosting investment in European businesses, raising wages for workers, and encouraging Europeans to support their own economy by buying European-made goods and services. A strong and vibrant domestic market acts as a buffer, helping Europe absorb global shocks and maintain stability even in uncertain times. Europe also needs a deep, integrated capital markets union, an ambitious project to pool resources and fund innovation and growth from within. Right now, too many startups and corporations still look to US investors for capital, risking a loss of control and profits to foreign interests. By mobilizing its own vast savings, the EU can keep profits, decision-making, and innovation at home, strengthening its economic independence. This would help fuel a new generation of globally competitive European companies, especially in cutting-edge fields like technology, green energy, and advanced manufacturing. True economic sovereignty starts with building these strong foundations, investing in infrastructure, education, and research. The time to act is now, as the world economy grows more unpredictable and competitive. Europe's future prosperity, security, and influence on the world stage depend on the choices made today. Europe's export-led model, especially in Germany, has driven prosperity but created vulnerabilities. Heavy reliance on US and Chinese demand leaves Europe exposed to foreign shocks. Shifting to a demand-led model means boosting spending and investment within the EU's vast internal market. Policies that raise wages and support strong labor markets put more money in people's pockets, fueling growth from within. Completing the single market for services, energy, and digital products would unlock huge potential. A fully integrated market makes Europe more attractive for investment and business. Focusing on internal demand builds resilience and reduces dependence on global volatility. This is the quiet engine of true economic independence. Strengthening the internal market is vital, but Europe must also diversify its trade beyond the US. Building new partnerships in Latin America, Asia, and the Indo-Pacific reduces vulnerability to any single partner. Finalizing the Mercosur deal and engaging with the CPTPP would open massive new markets for European goods. Diversified trade gives Europe more geopolitical leverage and options in times of crisis. If disputes arise with one partner, Europe can lean on others. This autonomy strengthens Europe's foreign policy and economic security. A multipolar trade strategy is essential for resilience in a turbulent world. Europe's prosperity should never hinge on Washington's whims. For decades, Europe's security has depended on US military power through NATO. Recent events and the war in Ukraine have exposed the risks of this dependency. Europe must now be able to defend itself. Increasing defense spending is only the first step. Spending smarter and collaborating is key. Europe's fragmented military systems are inefficient. Joint development and procurement would save money and boost effectiveness. Prioritizing European-made equipment strengthens the continent's defense industry and reduces reliance on US hardware. Initiatives like the European Defense Fund must be scaled up. Sovereign control over supply chains is vital for credible defense. Building a unified European defense capability is no longer optional. The time to act is now. The war in Ukraine is the ultimate test of Europe's ability to act independently. While Europe has provided aid, military support still relies heavily on US leadership. To achieve real autonomy, the EU must be able to sustain large-scale military support for partners like Ukraine. This means ramping up European defense production and streamlining procurement. A central EU fund for arming Ukraine would show long-term commitment. Success would prove Europe can defend its interests without Washington. Failure would reinforce dependency and vulnerability. Ukraine is not just a crisis, it's the crucible for a new European security identity. Europe's response will define its role for a generation. True autonomy means protecting Europe's political processes from foreign influence, especially online. US-based social media platforms shape public opinion and can spread disinformation. The EU's Digital Services Act asserts digital sovereignty, forcing global tech companies to follow European rules. Enforcing these laws limits foreign influence in European discourse. Supporting independent media and media literacy builds resilience against disinformation. Reforming EU decision-making, moving toward majority voting, would make Europe more agile and unified. A Europe that speaks with one voice is stronger and more respected. Political independence is as vital as economic or military strength. Europe must defend its democracy from all outside powers. European strategic autonomy is now a necessity, not a theory. The US pivot, war on Europe's border, and a shifting global order demand a stronger, more independent EU. This isn't a break from America, but a maturing partnership of equals. Europe must build a resilient economy, diversify trade, and fund its own innovation. It must forge a credible defense identity, supporting allies like Ukraine without relying on the Pentagon. Defending democracy and reforming decision-making are essential steps. The choices Europe makes now will define its place in the world for generations. The crossroads is here. Rely on a changing partner, or become the master of its own future. The path is clear, if not easy. Europe's destiny is in its own hands.